Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Film Frauds, where myself, Matt, and my co-hosts, Mark
Hello.
and Tyler.
Hello.
Oh, you just had a good joke. Oh, whatever. Providing completely unprofessional, 100%
What?
biased opinions of the movies
What are you
today,
talking
tomorrow,
about?
and yesteryear. Because talking about the witch. So you know how it's jokingly called the VVitch,
Yeah.
and you have an M, which is like technically two V's upside down. I was gonna call you Vivark and Tyler Tavler. But the joke is over. But
I'm glad
Mark,
you didn't do that.
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't do that either. I would have stopped it and then been like, cut that out.
I'm glad I said it retrospectively.
And explained it in detail too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, Mark, what are we talking about today?
Today we're going to talk about the director Robert Eggers, who directed the 2016 movie
2015.
The Witch.
2015.
Well, it came out.
It's also,
premiered in
did you say
2016.
Roger Eggers or Robert Eggers?
Robert Eggers?
Who do I get? Why do I keep saying Roger Eggers?
Because
Thinking
you're
of Roger
confusing
Ebert.
Roger. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Thinking of
Thank
Roger Ebert.
Okay.
Robert Eggers. Well, I guess it's 2015. Fine. And then The Lighthouse, which was 2019. And I chose this topic. And we're not talking about like the movies individually, I guess. We can maybe in a very bird's eye view kind of way we can talk about it. But I chose this topic because Robert Eggers was like my entry point into cinema. Like cinema.
Cinema Sins.
And Cinema Sins. Yes. I graduated from Cinema Sins thanks to The Lighthouse. But my history with Robert Eggers, I'll just go into that real quick. I saw The Witch back in 2016 and I did not like it, which is
Really?
funny.
Wow. Yeah, really?
I was not, I think too much Marvel had went to my brain. And so
You're like, where's the CGI monster at the end?
There's no blue light in the space.
Yeah. And I didn't really think much of it. And then in July 2019, the trailer for The Lighthouse came out. And I was like, this looks absolutely incredible. And by that point, A24 had really established itself. So I knew that this was probably going to be a quality product. And I was like, oh, it's the guy who directed The Witch. So this is going to be scary, I think. And also I love anything regarding the ocean. So I was like, okay, this is the natural, this is going to be great. So October 2019, I got tickets to see The Lighthouse at a special showing where he did a Q&A, Robert Eggers, did a Q&A right after the film ended. And I watched the film, and of course I loved it. And then it says, directed by Robert Eggers, and the lights go up, and I turn around, and Robert Eggers is 2 feet behind me. He's right there.
Did he smell good?
I wasn't that close to smelling.
Okay.
I tried.
Thank you for asking me. And
You will.
and he did this Q&A, and it was a really weird experience for me because it brought the literally brought the movie right from the screen down onto the floor, and I was able to look at it and like it wasn't this sort of like I don't think like what's I can't think of the word for it, but something that's just outside of yourself that you can't
Like
reach.
surrealist.
Yeah. It grounded the
Out-of-body
film,
experience.
and so it's a Q&A, and he's talking about the writing process of the film and the inspiration. He wrote it with his brother, and how the screenplay evolved, and how his research into the time period informed where the story was going to take place. And I was sitting there in the theater, and I'm like, holy crap. Like it was like, I guess surreal is the right word in this case. It was surreal to me because I was like, you can make a screenplay like this. Like you can just do that. And I think another reason why I was so intrigued by the film and Robert Eggers, because it was sort of outside of the Hollywood machine, so that brought another level of grounding to the film. And so after that, and I should also mention after the Q&A was over, he like walked past my chair out the theater. He was the first one out. And then I walked out with my brother, and we were just sort of like walking behind Robert Eggers. And I was like, what do I do with my hands? Do I shake his, do I ask him for a handshake?
Did you just grab his
I'm
ass?
like-
You're like,
I'm
nice.
like, shut up. But he was like 5 feet away from me, and we're walking out of the theater. I'm like, that is Robert Eggers. That is the next Scorsese or Kubrick or whatever. Like, he's right there. He's right there.
Yeah.
You're the
I didn't know what to do.
Scorsese.
I was like, you're Robert Eggers. He's like, yeah. And so
He's like, thanks.
Thanks. What a compliment.
That was really cool. It was like, I was like, oh, the people who make movies, like they actually exist in real life.
Yeah. I like to think there's like a crowd of people around. He's like, I loved your movie. I loved your. And Mark comes in. He's like, you're Robert Eggers. It's like out of the crowd. He's like, yeah, I know you.
Yeah. And so anyway, after that night of watching The Lighthouse, I was like really interested in screenwriting, or I picked up that famous book Sid Field's like screenplay, or like what's it called? Tyler, you have a copy of
I
it.
think I have a copy somewhere. Oh wait, The Foundations of Screenwriting.
Yes, I got that book, and I read that, and I read Robert McKee's story, and I was like just learning about the screenwriting process. And A24 had done a podcast with Robert Eggers and Ari Aster, the director of Hereditary and Midsummer, just at a table talking. And they're talking about what's influenced them and all this stuff. And they both agreed on the fact that like Ingmar Bergman, this Swedish director, Ingmar Bergman from a billion years ago, directed a few good movies that they really liked. And so I'm listening to this podcast and I'm like, who is Ingmar Bergman? Who is Andrei Tarkovsky? What is going on here?
Yep.
And so that led me on the rabbit hole of like actual cinema.
Yeah, like actually like this is like developed cinema kind of thing.
Yeah. Like I was so like I knew so little about cinema that in that podcast I discovered who David Lynch was for the first time. I had no idea who he was.
Yeah, so
like that's how little I knew about movies.
So that's the beauty of it, is like just to like go off of that a little bit. My experience with Robert Eggers is the fact that like I don't like contemporary horror movies. Like very infrequently do I find one that I think is something that I have any value with. And then I watched the Witch in like 2016, 2017, around the same time you did. And I was like, this movie is incredible. Like The Witch is like one of the best horror movies I think made in the past 10 years. I think it has this excellent combination of atmosphere, but also like characters that you behind. So when stuff happens, real like actual stuff happens, you start to really get involved with the characters. And there's also just like really great touches in The Witch, which we should probably clarify this. We're going to spoil these movies a little bit. This is just a general discussion, but like the greatest decision The Witch makes is showing you there's an actual witch. Like and it creates this like it just creates this tension throughout. You're like, what is this thing? What is it going to do? And then it goes from there. Yeah, Matt just like chaotic going back and forth. It's like, what does this witch do? But that's not the focus of the movie. The focus is on this breaking apart family unit. And it's like an incredibly like historically accurate, well-written, well-directed, well-acted movie. You're like, whoever's making this movie, I'm so excited to see what else is out. And then The Lighthouse comes out. And you're right, you see that trailer, because I rewatched this trailer in preparation for this video, and the trailer's incredible.
Yes.
Like it's incredible.
Both of them are.
Both of the trailers are incredible. And you watch it and you're like, this guy is going to hit it again. And then I saw the movie in theaters, and I was a little bit lower on The Lighthouse than I think most people were. And then I rewatched it again, and I was a little bit higher in The Lighthouse, but still not at that elevated level that everyone was. But you leave both of these movies going, Robert Eggers is one of the best, newest talents we're having. In his movies, even if you don't necessarily like the content of the movies, there is a technical masterwork behind every shot, behind every blocking of the shots, behind every single decision, framing, everything. There's something special here. And whether or not you agree with the content of the movies, because the VVitch, The Witch, and even The Lighthouse in some regard are known as being like well regarded with critics, but general audiences get their hands on them and they think they suck. Yeah. And that's what's very interesting about it, is we can sit here loving movies, having like an in-depth knowledge about movies and going, this guy is like, you're right. He's the closest thing we have to a modern day classic director, Kubrick, Scorsese, someone who makes movies sparingly, but each movie he makes seemingly gets better or touches on something else or does something else. And general audiences kind of don't like him, which I think is really fascinating. And I after like 2 years of you begging me to watch that podcast, I listened to it a lot at the gym and was like blown away.
I should also mention the podcast we're talking about. You can listen to it on Spotify. It's the A24 podcast. And this podcast is from July 2019. And it's Ari Aster talking about Midsummer, which had just came out. And then this is a few months before The Lighthouse came out. And so they sit down and have this conversation, and then they just talk about whatever. But what Robert Eggers wanted to do was make it a conversation about Bergman. And mind you, like again, when I was listening to this, I was like, you know, who the hell is Ingmar Bergman?
Yeah.
And then what after that, after I picked up on the name Ingmar Bergman, I watched The Seventh Seal. And The Seventh Seal for me was like a watershed moment of
Yep.
like, oh, cinema can be like there are this is going to sound very pretentious, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, but there are movies and then there's cinema.
Yeah.
And that is cinema. And that as pretentious as that sounds, it's the only way I can categorize or differentiate what The Seventh Seal is to what you see in the Hollywood machine.
Absolutely.
Because this Seventh Seal is a director making a work of art, but it's also, you can see him grappling with like these demons in him. And it's like, it's just this ultimate form of expression.
Matt,
so
Matt, what do you think so far? Like, what are your thoughts on Robert Eggers, his movies?
So I think that Robert Eggers. So we should clarify. Did we already say that Robert Eggers is from Massachusetts?
We did not. No, he's not from Massachusetts.
No, he's from New Hampshire.
He's from like a small. He's from like a town called like Lee, New Hampshire.
Oh, well, he's from the New England area, and I think
area.
And I think that his ability to capture like that sort of setting is really great in both of his movies. Oh yeah, you're right, Lee, New Hampshire, whatever. But I saw The Witch like years ago, and I remember really loving it. And then I rewatched it last year randomly, and I still liked it, but not as much. And I watched it again, you know, a couple of nights ago for the podcast, and it was kind of like in the middle between my first two viewings. So like I think The Witch is like definitely like a mood movie. You have to be in the right. You have to, you know, be like ready for it. I'm sorry, my dog. 1 second.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, you have to be in the right mood for it. It's absolutely like one of those things where it's a movie that requires like you to be in the right atmosphere for it, because it's like this heavy dialogue. It's dialogue that it is old. It's like old like Protestant New England. So there's a lot of like "tis be you" or the "thy," and it's like it's stuff that takes you like ways to get into it. But Robert Eggers is able to create this script with realistic, timely dialogue. But it's also like you can understand what's going on, and it's like a fascinating juxtaposition between the two, where you're just like, I can understand this, but also it's like it's challenging me. Like you have to pay in Robert Eggers movies. You have to pay attention. He treats his audience with respect, is what I really love.
Yes, I it's, you know, very clearly evident that he puts so much work into creating the atmosphere and sticking true to the time period. And you even see that almost even more in The Lighthouse. Because he knew the germ for that story was, I think his brother was writing a screenplay, and, you know, Robert Eggers went up to his brother Max Eggers and said, you know, what are you working on? And his brother says, like, I'm working on this story is a ghost story in a lighthouse. And Robert Eggers was like, damn, that's a good idea. And so they collaborated on that. And, you know, I think Robert Eggers said, like, when he pictures a movie, he has like the atmosphere in his head of like what it's going to be like. And, you know, he's thinking about the story and he's thinking like, okay, it's going to be black and white because, you know, this or that. And you got to have that. And he says these words in like almost every interview on The Lighthouse, but he says like the crusty, dusty, musty, rusty atmosphere. He says that like almost every, he uses that a lot, but he's, you know, it's true to what happens. And so he knew like what was in lighthouses and whatnot. And so all of these things decided, okay, this is going to take place around 1890. He didn't decide it's going to take place in 1890. All these other factors determined that. And then that informed like, okay, the cameras in that time period were, you know, the boxy aspect ratio, the black and white. And that's what informed that decision. It's not black and white. You know, I'm sure some people are like, oh, it's black and white, it's pretentious, but it's like, no, there's a reason. There's a reason why.
There's actual like timely kind of narratives to it.
Yes.
Matt, do you want to continue where you left off?
I apologize. My dog is 17 and a half and blind. So whenever he has an issue, I need to go and run to do it, which is quite often. So I said, I really enjoyed The Witch. Ultimately, I think it's like you have to be kind of in the mood for a slower burn movie. But I'm gonna echo what you said, where I love the aspect that you know that there is a witch. It makes all the family infighting seem all the more tragic because you know there's a bigger threat out there, and everyone's too focused on trying to on each other to really focus on the actual witches that are out there. And I just love that genre of horror movie where it's a slow burn, like short 90-minute movie, but more like the chaos happens towards the end, and it's just very slowly building, and it's like, and you watch it and you don't really believe that it's Robert Eggers' first movie because it's so expertly directed. We talked about the Kubrick comparisons a bit, but just like the way he zooms into the forest, like I think myself, I drive down 5 minutes to the forest near me. Even if I had like a good camera, I could zoom into that forest and it would mean nothing.
Yeah.
But he in the forest, and it just adds like this like sense of dread within you, inside you, and mystery. And he's clearly very talented. And then I saw The Lighthouse as well. I didn't see it in theaters, unfortunately, but I've seen it twice now. The first time I saw it, I was kind of like, it was all right. I finished it, and I admired a lot about it. I would say that like The Lighthouse from a filming standpoint is more competent than The Witch.
Yes.
But for me personally, I just connected with the story of The Witch a lot more. And upon second viewing of Lighthouse, I enjoyed it more, kind of knowing what I was getting myself into. But I would still say that I prefer The Witch over The Lighthouse.
I would agree.
Yep.
Even though, like, I think like Robert, I mean, like The Lighthouse is just a phenomenal movie in many regards. I just think that there are The Witch is just such like a concise movie that like you can't really edit things out or anything. But I feel like The Lighthouse kind of wanders a little bit in its plot at times.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, some of like the messages are a little more confusing to me, whereas like The Witch is a little more obvious for me.
Yeah. Well, there's like I think like he has like one of the best like. So just real quick, like there's a difference in The Witch and The Lighthouse. Is The Lighthouse is trying to be this like mixture of like surreal story, men gone crazy, but also like this parable, an allegory to like this old like the story of Prometheus. It's trying to be a different thing, but The Witch has like one of the most like present and like just like jaw, like one of those moments in a movie you're just like you're like holy shit. And it's like The Witch has like numerous one of those moments. I always think of in The Witch when Caleb comes back, the son, after being like cursed by the witch and basically like taken out, like he comes back and then they're praying and the kids are like, I can't pray, and then they're like falling about and they pass out or they like pretend to sleep, and then like it's just like this like chaos, like, and then at the end when she talks to the oh my god the
Black
goat
Phillip.
Black Phillip, thank you, and it like it cuts to her, but then you see something moving in the background and you see like this like figure like dressed in like black like leaning around her, and you're like, what the fuck? Like The Lighthouse has moments like that, but in the context of The Witch, it like The Witch is just like another entity for me. The Witch is one of like my favorite horror movies ever. I think there are moments of like genuine excellentness. While The Lighthouse is something that requires a little bit like more to give, which I know is like one of those things where it's like, oh, you're just kind of like, you like the movie that like spoon feeds things to you. And I'm like, yeah, not really, but also I understand where that criticism could come from. I think The Witch is just like, I watch The Witch and I'm like mesmerized by everything. I watch The Lighthouse and I'm more mesmerized by the camera work, the set, the cinematography.
Like the camera and the acting is really great. I mean, the acting is great in The Witch as well.
Yeah.
He's able to get such great performances as actors, even though like the language you're speaking, even though it's English, it's, you know, it's more complicated. It's Old English in The Witch, and I don't think it's old. It's like sort of like
it's not Old English
in The Witch.
Yeah.
It's not. No. It's like it's like a it's Elizabethan English.
Yeah,
I always just call it like Protestant like English, like early Protestant English and stuff
Puritan.
like that. Puritan, thank you. But yeah, like Mark, but like you're the like the Lighthouse like I know you've like touched it on already, but I remember when you got your projector and like the first thing you watched on the projector was The Lighthouse.
Yeah, I did. I don't know if you remember this, Taylor, but after I watched The Lighthouse, like maybe a few days after, I called you and was like incoherently raving about it.
Yeah.
I remember I was like walking outside my my school's library, and I was just like on the phone with you, and I was like, "This is that's the best thing ever." And I was like, "To Robert Eggers," and I was like,
I'm like, okay, yes,
I for you.
In the morning,
I subjected you to that. But yeah, and I should also clarify that I do love The Witch now. Going back to that is like, you know, amazing in the context of The Lighthouse and just seeing what Robert Eggers was going for, and you know his work process. Of course, I loved it. I've seen it three or four times now. I've seen The Lighthouse 3 or 4 times too as well. But yeah, he is very, very talented. And to talk about the Lighthouse, you know, you guys are not as high in it as The Witch, and I fully can see that. I'm just not. I think I'm high on it. I really respect the Witch, and I do love it, but and I can see the argument that the Witch is stronger than the
Yeah.
Lighthouse, but I'm biased because of
Yeah.
what the Lighthouse has done to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, and like even in an interview, like, you know, people are like trying to find like the deeper meaning of the Lighthouse, and he's like, it's just a weird tale, you know, I don't really
Yeah.
know.
He
It's the
said
same
like
scene like 50 times.
he said even like Robert Pattinson in like an interview was just like, I didn't want to make it about a magical lighthouse. I wanted to make it about a fucking guy going crazy. And you're
Yeah.
just like, it feels like one of those things of like, you're like, there are elements of like Lovecraftian horror, surrealist elements in the movie, but ultimately, like, the lighthouse is a story about like madness. And while like I think that's like like inherently fascinating, and you're tying that already interesting story with Robert Eggers' like masterful directing and ability to get performances and like what's it called, historical accuracy, and his ability to like weave scripts together. The fact that they're like oftentimes in like the lighthouse, there are scenes that are just like characters like going like what to each other, and like it's like every single line of dialogue in the lighthouse is riveting to the point like there's a scene, like the most iconic scene I feel like of the lighthouse is Willem Dafoe's monologue, where I think Mark, you had it memorized for like a little bit, for a tiny
I have
bit.
it memorized.
You had it memorized.
Do it.
Yeah.
Do it.
Oh, I'm not doing it.
Where like you have moments like that, and you're just like that, like it's basically him like cursing Robert Pattinson's character, like, but you like praying to like Neptune because he didn't like his cooking. Like, and it's a moment
Yeah.
like that. But like to me, like why I think I resonate with The Witch so much is because every aspect to it like flows into this like one building tension, and then there's another tension surrounding it, like you said, Matt, where you know there's something going on, but then like this little infighting is like wrecking everything. So when things come on outside forces, the family's so scattered that like, oh, then they all, spoiler, they all die.
Yeah. And in that podcast, Ari Aster and Robert Eggers talk about like sort of like the obsession with like certain images in films. Like I think for like Ari Aster said like he would like print out photos from like Clockwork Orange and Blue Velvet and like put it in a binder because it just like horrified him, and that's how he just like, but he was so invested in it. And with Robert Eggers, it was like Nosferatu.
Yep.
But for me, like Robert Eggers does that in The Lighthouse with the first shot of the mermaid, which to me is so unbelievably horrifying.
Yeah.
And it's burned into my brain. When she's in the water, like it's the siren is like calling Pattinson to the water, and then you just get that frame of just the mermaid in the water, just like shrieking, and it's
and like going up to
horrifying.
Don't like the jetties like move, like when he's going locked to the water. There's like the rocks are moving in the ocean.
I think so. Yeah.
Those aren't rocks; those are logs.
Logs, and and like that whole scene has like a very like old timey kind of feel to it as well, which is interesting because like it doesn't make any noise when it's moving, so it has that sort of like old, like, you know, like 1920s Nosferatu kind of like play theatrical element to it, where it feels like you're on a set in a way, but it just works. And same thing like when they're going up to the island, the seagulls are flying, like they don't look like real seagulls flying, they kind of look like puppets in a way, but it just works for the movie because of the tone is going for, and it makes you, and I feel like it's more of like an immersive element than a detractor of the movie itself.
And there's also a lot of great like influences in the movie. Like to prep for this podcast, I went and watched Joseph Losey's The Servant, which Robert Eggers has been like pretty open about like his influence on the dynamic between Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson. And like I always respect a director who's like, these are my influences. Like I'm not like, he's like, he even says in that podcast, he's like, I feel like I'm coming into my own a little bit with The Lighthouse, but The Witch, he's like, you could see where I was taking everything from. He's like, The Witch is very much like just like inspirations taken from other people. The Lighthouse is what I feel like I'm starting to come into my own, which is like a fascinating thing to explore, because like you look at like the movie like The Servant with this kind of like because The Servant is a movie about like a changing dynamic and a relationship between a servant and the master, and how that dynamic flips, and you definitely see that influences a little bit in The Lighthouse. And I just find I find those kind of inspirations to be fascinating, what directors take from that, what they're inspired by. And that podcast was so illuminating because you basically just hear him gush about Bergman's use of like close-ups. Like I watched Cries and Whispers to prepare for this, and this is not a spoiler for the movie, for Cries and Whispers. It's just one sequence, but one of the best sequences in Cries and Whispers is when one of our male characters puts a woman character like in front of like a mirror, and you get this like startling close up of her, and he just like starts like degrading, like and like listing all her flaws, and it's like this deeply personal moment. And you're like, what the? And you just start to like see this kind of stuff, and that's why when you get to like close ups in The Lighthouse or in The Witch, you're just like, you're like, I see what you're going for here, but he does it in such a way that's just so fascinating to. Like, to me, Robert Eggers is one of like the few directors today that's like a guaranteed, like, he made a movie, I'm seeing it. Like, I don't care. I'm not going to watch a trailer. I'm not going to look up anything. He made a movie. I'm watching it.
Yeah. And I also I can definitely see the influence of, I mean, might be a bit of a stretch, but the influence of Bergman in The Lighthouse is the monologues. Bergman is known for his monologues, and the first thing that comes to mind for me, you guys haven't seen it yet, but it's Winter Light. There's just these moments where just the characters
I've seen 20
are just like,
minutes of Winter Light.
yeah, the characters are just like monologuing into like literally into the camera, and the whole monologue is just riveting. And then you look at like The Lighthouse, and you get two monologues from Willem Dafoe. You kind of get one from Pattinson when he's just like, you know, that culmination scene where they're fighting each other, where he's just like, you know, I'm tired of your farts.
And you fought
everything. Yeah.
You stinky farts.
Yeah.
Farts.
Yeah.
You
And
smell you smell like a hot onion, like fuck the shit or whatever.
Yeah.
Buy the stick and fuck it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can feel Robert Eggers' love, and Ari Aster too. You can feel their passion for cinema in every frame of their films, and that is very refreshing. Yeah, it's very refreshing after what we're so used to, and so yeah, I really am indebted to Robert Eggers because he's kindled that passion for cinema in me.
Yeah.
And
do you guys think, like, if you didn't know who Robert Eggers was, that you could potentially link, like, if you watched The Witch and The Lighthouse, would you have an idea that they were the same director if you didn't know who Robert Eggers was?
I think so, because of the dialogue.
Yeah, I was thinking the dialogue would be like the key, like the dialogue and like the location sort of. I would say, like, I noticed in the Witch, like, more long takes of scenes, whereas like The Lighthouse, if it was a little more dynamic, it feels like he was a little more comfortable with moving the camera in The Lighthouse.
Yeah.
But I think from a writing standpoint, yes. From a directing standpoint, I would hesitate to say no, that I would not be able to.
I mean, they're the same cinematographers. Jaron Blash. I'm probably butchering that name. Blaschke. I think so. Yeah. I'm really bad at pronouncing name, but he's the same cinematographer. And I mean, like, there are certain points, like, I don't want to talk about him in direct opposition to like standard Hollywood blockbusters, but I feel like it's a really important discussion to have. There's a reason why a lot of these like directors who force themselves to stay true to their like vision, A24 movies. I think of like Paul Thomas Anderson. I think of Ari Aster. I think of even someone like Barry Jenkins with like Moonlight and If Beale Street Could Talk. Their movies just like inherently look better than a lot of contemporary blockbusters. And I think there's like something there where that's why I think a part of us, why we gravitate towards these movies so much, is for years, and I don't want to make this like a Marvel discussion, but I feel like when we're talking about contemporary blockbusters, they're the go-to because they are a representation of blockbusters. But I know what criticism that we all have about Marvel movies is they all look the same. They look digital, they look artificial, and they all look the same.
Yeah. And I think another problem I have with the Marvel films is, and there are exceptions to the rule, James Gunn being one, maybe Taika Waititi, but it's like, okay, maybe this is an artist executing their vision, but that being said, there's still a board of directors that is making sure a certain checklist is being met.
Yeah.
And that compromise will always stand in the way of me enjoying one of those films. Like, cause there are great Marvel films. Like, it's not, you can't say they're all bad. Like, I love Guardians of the Galaxy 2, but even then, even though James Gunn has this vision, they're still pushing toward, at that point towards like Thanos or something, It's like, that is outside. That's the force that James Gunn cannot fight against.
Yeah.
He has to.
I do think, like, in that interview, the Ari Aster, the podcast, the A24 one, Robert Eggers did say, he's like, I had 2 studio movies that fell through. and you're just like you're fascinated. Or he was developing 2 studio movies. I think one of them was like Dracula. Like I think it was going to make.
He was doing a Nosferatu.
Who was doing the Dracula one then? I thought there was someone like tapped for like a Dracula one that fell through, but
well, you probably thinking of Nosferatu because Nosferatu is like ripped off of Dracula.
Okay, because then I was probably thinking about that one then because like I'm fat like. To me, there's a lot of like really great new directors that keep getting those tapped for like these new movies. It's like Chloe Zhao who did Nomadland, which is one of my favorite movies last year. I know you guys are lesser on that movie, but there's also like I think that movie is just like inherently well directed. Who's now doing like the next big Marvel movie, and you're just like there's these like little like I want like a director to be void of like the system. Like the biggest thing that sucked was like Ryan Coogler. Basically like getting tapped to do like Black Panther because Fruitvale Station's excellent. Creed is 100% biased, like one of my favorite movies of all time. Fucking love Creed.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
It's a great movie. But then like Ryan Coogler does like Black Panther, and now he's tapped to do those movies for the next like 10 years. And you're like, I wonder what the direction of his career would have been if he's not within this Hollywood system. And I feel like we have directors like Ari Aster, Barry Jenkins. The thing is like Barry Jenkins got tapped to do like a Lion King thing, right? Or something. Barry Jenkins got tapped to do like I'm gonna look it up after, but like got tapped to do something. And I just like want directors to make visions like this, but then the issue is money because it is a business.
Yeah. There's a quote from Tarkovsky. He said like, cinema is an unlucky art because it depends on money,
Yeah.
Because you can just write a book, you can make a painning, but you have to.
You need
there's
to have
so
people
much
support you when you're making a movie.
Yeah.
You need equipment, you need actors, you need all these like people on set.
Yeah, you have to compromise no matter what. I'm not sure, like even if you're like Scorsese or no, like even Scorsese it was like even after Taxi Driver, I think like it was like almost impossible getting King of Comedy off the ground.
Yeah.
Like even though you got Taxi Driver under your belt, you're still struggling.
Can I just throw this out there real quick, just tying back to my Barry Jenkins point. Barry Jenkins makes Moonlight, one of the most like thought-provoking and touching and personal movies of like the past 10 years. And then he makes If Beale Street Could Talk, which is James Baldwin's. It's the adaptation film, which is excellent. The movie's excellent. The book's excellent. He's then tapped. I think he did like a TV show about like the Underground Railroad. He's like very in touch with like the Black Americans and like kind of making those type of movies. And the next movie he's tapped to make is a prequel to the CGI remake of The Lion King, where we get the origins of Mufasa.
Serious?
Yeah, I remember that. It's a prequel to the CGI remake. That's so I don't like. I'm not someone who's just like I fucking love. Like I'm gonna go see the Suicide Squad in theaters later today. I'm not this fucking like movie purist, but there's just something so inherently like you hear that and you're like. There's like 4 years gone. A prequel to a CGI remake.
Yeah.
It's like you just like those like words to get like, and that's why like that's why I think one, you wanted to probably talk about this, Mark. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think we're all like, yeah, let's talk about this because we recognize like a director that's like it feels like pure almost. And that sounds really bad. And like
could you imagine like if Boogie Nights came out like around this time period and like PTA's new hot director, bam, you're doing a Flash prequel.
Yeah.
And then during those 6 years he spends in developmental hell, he could have been making
Magnolia. Magnolia.
Yeah, that and then Punch Drunk Love and all of those movies. Like those potentially could have been lost in the like the Hollywood circuit. And I in the back of my mind, like it's probably not true, but sometimes I think that Disney picks these directors because they don't want good movies to be out in theaters. They just like you pick them up and then they can't make any good movies for 4 years, and then by the time they're frustrated with it, their reputation is ruined, a la Josh Trank, and then no one cares about them anymore.
Well, I mean, Josh Trank was like a different entity because apparently
he's like an extreme, but I'm just saying like,
or even take like Guy Ritchie, and Guy Ritchie makes movies that are really good, and then that's like Guy Ritchie is like a little fluctuating.
Yeah, your King Arthur's, and you got
King Arthur's, and you got like Snatch. But the thing is like Snatch that, but Guy Ritchie makes Guy Ritchie movies. It's hard to say like a guy has a style, but then he gets tapped to do Aladdin. And then you're sitting there, you're just like,
and he's like a pretty competent like blockbuster director too. Like I like the Sherlock Holmes movies a lot. I think
Yeah.
I mean they're not like deep, but they're well made. But
he makes,
Aladdin, like these
he makes
crappy
like,
remakes of movies for Disney, and like there was 4 years of their career.
yeah, it's
right
like, it's
there.
kind of one of
Bam.
those things of like, I still would see Midsommar,
Yeah.
Midsommar, but I mean, like, Hereditary is excellent. It's like, it's one of those things of like, if Ari Aster was tapped to do the next like big like if he was basically tapped to do like Doctor Strange 2, which is being put forward as like the horror movie of like the Marvel movies. And it's just like one of those things of just like, I don't want to like beat a dead horse, but I think the reason why I love these movies and I'm like so fearful about like the upcoming like status of movies is because we could sit here and go like we don't want these movies to go away, but also then these movies don't make any money. Like Magnolia. I just want to, like, Magnolia is regarded as like one of the greatest movies of like American cinema. Magnolia had a budget of $35 million and made like $47 million on its box office. Like, I know that was 20 years ago. I know it's different, but it's like movies like this just bomb. And I'm worried.
Yeah, there's I think another reason why I have a few things I want to say. One, I remember it might have been that podcast, Tyler. Remind me, you may have heard this, but I remember Robert Eggers saying that right after I think he won the Golden Lion at the Venice Film Festival for The Witch, or like won Best Director or something. 10 minutes later, he gets a call from Hollywood to direct like the next blockbuster. And Robert Eggers was talking about that, and it was like he said something like, that was like a crazy experience for him because like up until that point he was a nobody.
Yeah.
And then they're already trying to recruit him for the next franchise. Because they never watched the movie. They never watched The Witch, these recruiters, but they know that this guy won Best Director.
Yeah, he's a new up and coming thing.
So they wanted to pull that talent. And then another thing with like on the topic of like wasted talent, like you look at something like The Lion King or a Lion King prequel or whatever, and you just know that like an AI could direct this. And
it's Ready Player One. It's Ready Player One.
Did you see Ready Player One?
Yeah.
yeah. Like an AI could direct it and just serve it on a plate to the people who are waiting for it. And then also to touch like Scorsese's comments, like he is absolutely right about Marvel films. And that's not to say there's anything bad about Marvel films.
I like Marvel movies.
I like the Marvel films. I think Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is phenomenal. I think Infinity War is like, I have no idea how they did it. But they are something else. You can't say like Infinity War and the Seventh Seal are even in the same. They're not even the same sport. And so I think this is a very interesting topic of like taking these like well-proven, competent directors who deeply care about their craft. On topic of Barry Jenkins, I love Moonlight. Like that movie is phenomenal. He cares everything that happens in the film. It's obviously cares so deeply about, and you see that bleed through the screen. And then for him to do that, a Lion King prequel, which I'm sure is going to be, if it's Barry Jenkins, it's going to be done well.
There's going to be competence.
But is this what he wants to do? And I can't say, obviously bills need to be paid, all this stuff.
Like the most famous quote. Yeah.
I want to see Barry Jenkins do like, I mean, maybe he really wants to do this and we're just putting words in this, or like assuming this.
We don't know.
Yeah, we can't say for sure, but I'd love to see something in the same league as like Moonlight, because that was just unbelievable.
I think like the most famous quote of like someone like clearly doing this for money is when Michael Caine was in Jaws 4. And he's just like, they're like, did you like Jaws 4? He's like, no, but I like the house it built.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, people do this for money. And like, it's in, I think your quote about like Tarkovsky like rings true here is like The Witch made on a budget of $4 million, made about $40 billion box office. The Lighthouse, same exact budget, $4 million, made a little under $20 million. But these movies have like, they have like long standing. We're going to think about The Lighthouse and The Witch as like some of the best movies made in the past like 20 years. It's just like one of those things. They have long standing, they have word of mouth, but I feel like when you look at like direct, because we often correlate success to box office numbers. Like we have rare cases of like Edge of Tomorrow having like great word of mouth. So when it came out in like Blu-ray and DVD and home video, it sold really well. But like they see these numbers. I feel like Hollywood exactly can go like, okay, well your movie don't make money. Like M. Night Shyamalan had to like self-finance his movies because he made bad movies and his movies didn't sell. And then he has
Yeah.
self-finance. Now he's like slowly building back up. It's like,
Mhm.
there's just like, I worry that we're entering a realm where it's like what you said, you made a great movie, you're the new hot thing, and now you're tapped for a Marvel movie, and then there's the next 8 years. Or you're
I
tapped for
had
a
a
Disney movie.
prediction like 4 years ago that at some point there will be two major companies. There'll be Disney
Yeah.
and The Rock will make his own movie company.
Yeah.
And there'll be those two conglomerates making movies. And then Yorgos Lanthimos making his like small indie movies.
Yep.
And those will be the three types of movies you can watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be The
Disney,
Rock.
The
Yeah.
Rock, or Yorgos.
Like, Matt, how
Yeah.
would you feel if like Yorgos was tapped? He's like, I'm making the new Iron Man 4.
That's the thing is like I'm sure someone like probably without having even smelled lobster or killing a sacred deer, like they see his name pop up and they're like, oh, this will attract like art fans to see our shitty prequel movie. And then he probably has gotten calls from Disney or Warner Bros. To make bad movies that he's just turned down. But yeah, going with Robert Eggers, like you look at Yorgos's like early work and it's like this guy who just like like just kept sticking to his guns and then is now like an Oscar nominated director and hasn't needed to sell out to make his own movies. And you look at his resume of film and it's all movies that you would see him making. And same thing with Robert Eggers so far, is that they're all movies that you could conceivably see him making. And like I admire that so much. And same with actors too, like Leo DiCaprio never. I mean, not that Leo needs the money, but he has never done a Marvel movie or superhero movie, as far as I'm aware. I
don't think he's ever sold. I don't think he's ever like not. I feel like selling out is like a bad way to phrase. I don't think he's ever done like one of those types of projects.
Yeah, and it's like I just admire that so much because not that like disrespect. Like I mean, like Owen Wilson played Morbius in Loki, and like I don't have less respect for Owen Wilson. Like I think he did a good job in Loki, but actors like Leo who like still like just want to make movies by filmmakers is very admirable.
Or you have someone like Adam Driver who has done like movies with like Scorsese, like everyone under the sun.
Yeah, he did The Last Jedi and Marriage Story in the same year.
Yeah,
and they are on the literal opposite ends of the film spectrum.
Exactly. Yeah, and you're just sitting there like you're like, is this just like? Well, Adam Driver was thrown into prominence. He was in the TV show Girls, which is really popular on HBO, and then he got Force Awakens, and
Silence,
like he just like skyrocketed, but he's still in those movies, and it's one of those things stuff like you're right, like the conglomerate with the fact that like A24 is probably going to end up selling to another company. Like, did you guys hear about those news? They're probably going to sell.
I really hope that could either be a good thing or a bad thing.
The issue is like the reports that I was seeing right now is that Apple might buy it, which means A24 movies might be behind the paywall of Apple Plus or Apple whatever it's called. But they're going to sell for like $3 billion. But we're just like slowly losing these like companies to bigger. It's just baffling. Like when Fox bought, when
it's
Disney
definitely a
bought
strange
Fox.
trend where like these streaming services are hiring directors to make and filmmakers and film and writers to do whatever the hell they want. Look at Alex Garland's like short miniseries that came out on Hulu, which I watched, and I can't think of the name right now.
I know you're talking about
Devs, and it's like, and it feels like an Alex Garland thing. And without streaming services, we never would have gotten it because like no one would have ever made it's basically an 8-hour-long movie. Yeah. So there's definitely like we're talking about film as if it's like becoming more soulless, but there are elements where like these streaming services know that they can hire filmmakers with visions for smaller budgets that will attract a reasonable audience to justify the money they're spending on the series or movie or what have you. So it's not all bad, but it does suck that they had to be locked behind these stupid paid subscriptions for these services you don't really care about.
Do you know do you know real quick because I don't want to cut you out, Mark, like I feel like with like it happens with Scorsese, where Scorsese's like, I want to direct The Irishman, and Netflix went, how many zeros? Okay, here you go. And same with Killers of the Flower Moon. They just went, Scorsese's like, I want $250 million, and they're like, okay, like sure.
That was Apple, right?
That was Apple. So like we're gonna get this new Scorsese movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, and we're gonna have to.
Brendan Fraser is attached to it now.
I saw that, yeah, and they just went, they're gonna have to buy Apple Plus to watch this movie, and you're just like it's like dip Apple. Sorry, we condone the supporting and buying of Apple Plus.
Yes.
One thing I wanted to point out was even though like the machines have taken over like cinema, I still have hope for the future because with the sort of democratization of film equipment and if you have like the willpower and like maybe if like $10,000-$20,000 working with other people, you could probably make like a really solid film, which wouldn't have been the case like 30 years ago. And I think it's only going to get cheaper and cheaper. I mean, I'm assuming. I'm not an economist. But
I found Netflix's most popular movies by people watch, the numbers that they give. Do you guys want to try to figure out like the top 5 real quick?
Tiger King.
No, movies, not movies.
Oh, movies.
Like Netflix produced movies.
Basically the movies on Netflix that Netflix has made that have the most amount of people watched. How many views? Bird Box is number 2 with 89 million views. This is from an insider article that came out in what's it called? July 21st, so in 2021.
So Bird Box is 1.
No, Bird Box is 2.
It's gonna be an Adam Sandler movie. One of the
Hold on. Bright's not up there. Bird Box is number 2, 89 million views. Adam Sandler movie, Murder Mystery, 83 million views.
Wait, so that's number 3?
That's number 5. Sorry.
Number 5. Okay.
Yeah.
So I got 2 so far.
Irishman's not up there.
Wait. Oh, the Melissa McCarthy superhero movie is gonna be up there. No, it's not.
Yeah, I think it's on Apple.
Extraction.
No, my parents watching Netflix.
Extraction's number 1.
What?
99 million views.
No wonder why we're getting a sequel.
So it's the most. Okay, so the top 5. Okay, well, let's just look at the top 5. An Adam Sandler movie, Murder Mystery. Number 5 is tied with 6 Underground, a Michael Bay movie. Number 3, Spencer Confidential, a Mark Wahlberg, Peter Berg movie. Number 2, Bird Box.
Does it have Post Malone in it?
Yeah, that's like the Post Malone movie. And then number 1, Extraction. And listen, we don't know the numbers, and we don't know. I don't think we know what quantifies technically a view. But if we're doing that solely in terms of like box office, 99 million views. Extraction's like $1 billion movie. If we're thinking like in terms of like one view is a box office, like one ticket, and I'm putting at the average price of like $12 a ticket, at least that's what normally is for us. That's $1 billion movie. It didn't generate $1 billion of revenue for a Netflix, but if you're talking about that in terms of like a modern release, it would have never made $1 billion. Like what the fuck? Like holy shit! Yeah. Like that's like no wonder why we're getting a sequel. No wonder why they went. Spoiler alert: they killed Chris Hemsworth, and then like 99 million people watched, and then went, "He's not dead. He's alive."
You know what I'm thinking? This is me thinking out loud. But I mean, do you guys imagine people would buy a Netflix subscription to watch Extraction? No. Yeah. So now I'm thinking that these Netflix produced movies are just a way of collecting data as to what the market wants.
It's more about keeping subscriptions than trying to get more. Well, I might want to get more, obviously, but they want to keep who they have.
But like it gives like the producers a good idea of like what are people willing to see and invest time into, and it'll yield more data than probably say a theater would, because you can only imagine how much the views of Extraction would go down if it was only a theatrical release. So you're collecting more data, and now the AIs can go to work to figure out how to write the next John Wick spinoff.
What the fuck is Fatherhood? 74 million views. Kevin Hart in Fatherhood. Project Power, Army of the Dead, Matt. 75 million views.
What a gem that was.
So I also, what was the point I was going to make? I had an excellent point. Oh, okay. So like collecting data. There's this movie that came out called The Mitchells versus the Machines. It's regarded as one of the best like animated movies that came out in the past like 5 years. I don't like that movie. I want to throw it out there. It's like well reviewed every single way. I'm like baffled by the support of this movie because I watched Mitchell and the Machines and I was like, this is an algorithm movie. I'm like, this is a movie where they recognize what the success, and specifically probably the success of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And when we're going to tailor a movie to reach as many audience members as we can, there's humors for our generation, the younger generation than us, where it's like TikTok, Instagram, like meme humor. There's humor for millennials. There's humor for Gen Z, for boomers. They literally tailor-made jokes that every single generation can go, I'm like that too. It tailored in with like it's like legitimately like they have moments that are like cliche moments for moms and for dads and for kids. They have a cute animal. They have like this, like, it's like one of those things where I'm like, I watched this movie and I went, there's a joke for Gen Z. Oh, there's a joke for, like, it's this crafted algorithm movie. And I was just sitting there like, what am I watching? Like, it's well made, sure, but you just can't help looking at it and going like, what the fuck? Like, is this movies now? And you feel that. Did you ever watch like did you ever watch that one movie with like Ben Affleck, like Oscar Isaac, like Pedro Pascal or something like that came out on Netflix? Yeah, you didn't even know what I'm talking about.
Underground?
Not Six Underground. That was the Ryan Reynolds one. But there's like this one like action movie with like legitimately Ben Affleck, like Oscar Isaac, like good actors. And it's just like the most mediocre movie ever made. Like Netflix doesn't aim to make 10 out of 10 movies. They aim to make 6 out of 10 movies to get people going, to make the money and to keep going.
I saw a good movie. I don't remember what it was called.
Yeah, but I saw it. And then you're sitting there like, what the fuck? I'm actually gonna look up that movie. But like, are you guys gonna Mark's gonna be right back. Matt, do you ever see yourself like buying like Apple Plus to watch this stuff?
Yes, I totally see myself buying the Apple Plus for its many great products.
Say it.
Where's the script?
Where's the script? Oh, Triple Frontier.
Triple Frontier. Oh yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah, you've heard of it. It was Ben Affleck, Oscar Isaac, Charlie Hunnam, Garrett Hedlund, Pedro Pascal. That's a good cast.
That is a good cast. I don't know how they ended up with this movie, but
yeah. So we're sitting here like, I know this is kind of divulged away from
it's about the lighthouse.
So about the lighthouse, I know this is kind of divulged away, but I just like inherently find this like there's a looming threat of like, wait, what are the top? Do you want to just go through the top? Okay, ready? It was Fatherhood, previously The Irishman, Project Power.
Wait, these on Netflix?
Yeah, Project Power, Army of the Dead, Enola Holmes, The Old Guard.
Oh, The Old Guard! What a piece of crap movie that was.
So like we're sitting here, like and like, has HBO Max released any numbers on like its movies? Like, how did like Mortal Kombat do?
I don't know.
Does it matter? Watch that. I forgot.
And so did I. But Mortal Kombat now is a sequel coming.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think this is. Yeah, we've strayed quite a bit from the original topic. But
so tying it all in, the lighthouse, at the top of the lighthouse is that peak form of cinema made by an auteur, and you touch it and you die.
Yes.
That is it.
Stare into the light. Yeah. I also find it interesting how our conversation sort of metamorphized into this. Because we've established that Robert Eggers is like someone who cares.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm certain that like all these directors, they truly care about their art.
Yeah.
But just the levels of compromise that are everywhere and so clear to see. It's like,
yeah.
But I think I am hopeful for the future. I think if more like parasites start creeping through the cracks and the studios realize, oh, people actually want like good films. I think hopefully that tumbleweed starts rolling and, with more access to film equipment, we can see more and more better movies in general, at least.
The thing is though, like you say like, Parasite, but the year before Green Book won Best Picture at the Oscars.
Yes, but progress is progress.
And then the year before,
but also 2019 in general was like insane.
Yeah.
2019.
Like
I still think like Parasite is an incredible movie, but still not my favorite movie of that year.
It's not my favorite movie of that year, but like
3.
it was universally acknowledged at the Oscars, and that was a big deal.
I still think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood's the best movie that year.
Subjectively wrong, but but yeah. So to go back to our original subject, we're looking at the Northman in I think April of 2022. That's Robert Eggers' next film, if I'm not mistaken. Someone fact check me.
No, that's right.
Yeah,
It's
and
the only one
so
on IMDb that has like a cast and everything, so I'm assuming that it's his next one.
yeah, and the cast is insane. You got Nicole
Yeah.
Kidman, Willem Dafoe. You got the two Skarsgårds. There was gonna be three. One of them had to drop out.
Oh no. Do you want me to read the cast real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
Alexander Skarsgård, Anya Taylor-Joy, Nicole Kidman, Ethan Hawke, Willem Dafoe, Bjork, Ralph Ineson, who was the dad,
Green Knight,
the Green Knight guy, but also the dad and the witch, and that's it. I made it seem like there's more, but then there's a bunch of other people I don't know about.
Yeah, but you know, you can clearly see Robert Eggers is becoming, you know, like the first film. I think Anya Taylor-Joy in The Witch, she was relatively unknown. That might have been a breakout
Yeah,
role.
I think she had like a couple of. That was like kind of her vehicle, was the witch.
And then from there we get Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson, two A-listers.
Yeah,
and now look at the amount of A-listers in this one.
and it shows that like with the cast from people from The Witch and Lighthouse returning, they like working with Robert Eggers.
So legitimately, I'm looking at this movie. It's I think some of the same producers, the same editor, it's the same cinematographer, and I think the same production design. Like I think like basically like the same crew is coming back.
The only thing that scares me is Alexander Skarsgård. I do not like him as an actor.
You didn't like War on Everyone?
I think he's a charisma vacuum. I have no idea how he's getting. King Kong vs. Godzilla.
The Straw Dogs remake.
Oh God.
He is.
No,
what do you guys think of him as an actor? I think he's. I don't know how he keeps getting roles. I think he's terrible. He's not terrible, but he has nothing.
I don't think I've watched a single.
He could potentially. I mean, look what Robert Eggers did with Robert Pattinson.
But Robert Pattinson was like trending up. Yeah.
But we had good time before then, you know. Yeah. And I think I mean I haven't seen the show, but I've heard good things about Cosmopolis.
He was trending upwards though. Robert Pattinson was always a talented actor. Yeah. Like I'm gonna look up Alexander Skarsgård movies real quick and see what
I'm saying. Even though Alexander Skarsgård hasn't really proven, you know, that he's like this next level actor, like maybe in the same
or even a decent actor.
Yeah, but I feel like there might be untapped potential that Robert Eggers could.
I'm open-minded, and the rest of the cast is so stellar too. But I just, whenever I see him in a movie, I just get nervous because it's not even like he's a bad actor. It's just that he just has nothing. I don't reach it. Like he just has no charisma.
So
and then there's another thing is it's an 11th century Viking revenge tale, and
10th century.
His last name is Skarsgård.
10th century.
10th century. Sorry. Oh, my bad.
So I just want to read some Skarsgård movies. Godzilla versus Kong. He's in Melancholia, apparently.
Oh, he's in Melancholia. Yeah, he's fine in it.
He's in Zoolander.
The first one?
Yeah, and the second one. I can look that up. He's in the movie Long Shot. Directed by the guy who did 50-50. That movie's good. I don't remember him in it.
So that's not promising still.
He's in Tarzan, which is bad. He's in that movie. No.
Tarzan's not that good. He's not good in anything.
He's in the Jeremy Saulnier Hold the Dark. Or not Jeremy Saulnier.
Oh, yeah, he's not good in that either.
Yeah, he's not good in that. He's in The Giver, which is not that good. He's apparently in Zoolander 2. He's in Battleship.
He's not good in that.
He's in Mute. Yes. Remember Mute? I fucking hate Mute. He's in Little Drummer Girl, that show that you watched.
Oh, he's bad in that too. Park Chan-wook didn't make a good performance out of him.
And he's in War and Everyone. Those are like
so we're kind of proving that he works with good filmmakers, and they like Park Chan-wook is like top tier, and he's still, I don't know. I mean, maybe this is me, but I hope he has as little to do with the movie as possible.
David Bowie's in
Well, let's also look at it this way. Like, okay, his character name is Hamnet. So that's one thing. It gives us an idea of what kind of character he's going to be. It's a revenge tale. Maybe it isn't I mean, I really don't know much about 10th century Viking era Europe.
Yeah.
But I can't really say for sure what the emotional intelligence will be of that time period. So this role might demand things from him that haven't been demanded before. Maybe demanded less of.
Hopefully less. I mean, but he's gonna be with such like top tier actors that it's just gonna be
bouncing
off.
He's gonna be bouncing off.
Like, he's gonna be bouncing off. It's gonna be more distracting.
For Nicole Kidman. Yeah.
Ethan Hawke, Nicole Kidman. Willem Dafoe's in this. I mean, like
Anya Taylor-Joy, Ralph Ennis is a great actor. He's not as well known, but he's a great actor.
He's a great actor. I'm excited. Like it's Robert. Like we just said before. Like regardless of the fact that Alexander Skarsgård's your lead, he hasn't really proven himself yet. I mean, he's still always potential. Like, you never know, because you look at Robert Pattinson with Twilight, and you're like, this guy sucks. And then like 3 movies later after that, you're like, this guy's kind of good. And you kind of move from there. Like, you never know. But I also
Robert
like,
Pattinson was like in his like late 20s when he got like that next level, and like Skarsgård's in early 40s now. So
who knows? Like,
yeah,
you never know. But I also like, I will
I'm seeing it just to clarify.
Yeah,
I'm excited for those movies.
Yeah, you because he's the lead. Yeah,
I think I don't want to use this term for this, but I have to use it because it's best conveys what I'm trying to say. But like Robert Eggers' brand, and I really hate the word brand, but his brand is sort of like, I don't want to say period piece, but taking these stories from the past and immersing you in that world to the best visibility, because he researches so thoroughly. And like on the Northman, he's collaborating with like an Icelandic poet.
Isn't it based off of an Icelandic book?
Well, I know that there's the Icelandic sagas. There's like the Eagle saga and Hrafnel's saga, and they're really hard to pronounce. But there's a wide array of literature on these Viking era sagas from this time period. So I'm certain that there can be a lot of preliminary reading we can do, and we can see what Robert Eggers is doing. But he's collaborating with an Icelandic poet or a Swedish poet. I'm not sure. So, and plus he's doing all this research. They built a whole village for the shoot. They built a whole village.
Jesus.
And so it's if you know the lighthouse that was all built for the film. Everything you see, all the buildings were built for the film. They literally built an 18th or 19th century lighthouse.
Pretty baller.
And, a working foghorn and a light that could see for a few miles. Like, it was legitimate. And they did that also because the tower of the lighthouse itself, they built it so they could remove the walls to shoot.
Yeah.
I think you might have said that in the podcast, so I might have heard that too.
Yep.
So with that amount of creative control that Robert Eggers has with the set pieces, it's going to be, I'm fanboying obviously, but it's going to be pretty great. I'd imagine. I mean, I have no reason to doubt it wouldn't be. And so yeah, I'm really glad that Robert Eggers exists and he's making movies.
Yeah, same with me. And I think that's a pretty good place to like go like, hey, we're gonna see his movie. Like, we're all for it. Like, we love.
Yeah.
Like, regardless of the level of which we love his movies, I think we respect them like unabashedly. And I'm just like, he's the director that I'll see. Like, I'll just watch him. Until he's basically like still a trend of like number of bad movies in a row. I'm gonna watch anything he makes. I think that's a pretty good place to end for now,
including the Winnie the Pooh prequel movie.
Yes, the Winnie the Pooh remake of the prequel movie.
Yes, exactly. Live action.
Live action, yes. All right. Do you guys have any final thoughts before we end this?
No.
No? Thank you if you've gotten this far.
We got really off topic.
But that's the fun part of it, is we come in with a discussion, and then all of a sudden we're debating.
You're here for our personality and our banter.
Yeah.
Yeah. A banter.
All right.
Block Philip.
Oh my god. We all said banter and then Black Phillip in terrible fucking accents. Okay. I'm not gonna announce what we're gonna do next week because we're still working that out. But
in this woods.
So you're just gonna have to like shut up. You're just gonna have to.
I could be Ralph Ennis in that movie.
You could be Ralph Ennis. You're just
cut wood.
He's like jacked in that movie too. By the way, he's got
jacked.
like abs. He's good. Okay. We're not gonna announce what we're doing next week.
Did you pause and then it paused for like 5 minutes on your TV, and then you press play again after?
Yeah, absolutely. You're gonna see like when he's chopping the wood, his abs are rippling, and then I paused, and then like 15 minutes went by, and then I came back. I was like, okay, there we go. Yeah, there you go. Right.
I like how you just repeated my joke.
Yeah, but I added the time. I gotta make it seem like I got stamina. It was actually like 35 seconds. Like it wasn't 5 minutes.
Scream Chris Pine.
Chris's Pine. All right. I'm not gonna. Chris's Pine. Do you get it? It's like a dick joke.
I get it. I get it.
You had to explain it to me.
Oh, thank you. Like your joke at the beginning. Okay, this is now divulging
Let's
into
wrap
I'm
it
an
up before
idiot.
Tyler fully embarrasses himself.
I've already done that. I've already embarrassed myself. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you again at some point in the future with a new episode because we're really cool. All right. Thank you guys for watching, and I get the final word. Goodbye.